rebel Mechas had lost a fair amount of Mechas in their offensive push, but neither Vez nor Alvin cared for their opinions. The fire runner navigated the debris and craters until it arrived at the closest depot. Grab a fire hose. The gray one. That's the cryoprojector. With all the complicated materials being used these days, some of them easily caught fire. Bases generally hosted different extinguishing solutions, one of which happened to be a cryoprojector that drastically lowered the temperature of any material. Cryoprojectors weren't available in the galactic rim. Even in the heartland, cryoprojectors still used up too much bulk to be used as an independent weapon system for the extreme environmental conditions they might be subjected to. This pretty much relegated these kinds of projectors solely for firefighting. Grab a hose and point it at an enemy shield formation. Though Alvin still held plenty of doubts, he did as he was asked and grabbed the projector. The hose automatically extended itself from a socket as Alvin ran back towards the half-collapsed walls. Which setting should I use? Use a concentrated stream. It will take a while for the temperature changes go set in. Aim for the middle of their shields. Alvin proceeded to approach the enemy lines and hosed down the thickest concentration of Mechas. The rebel pilots momentarily panicked before getting back their senses. Why would their shields be vulnerable to being frozen? It hadn't failed them so far. It takes a while for the changes to settle in. Blast each shield for around 8 seconds. That should be sufficient to wreck them over time. Soon after, the frozen shields started to crack, as the remaining defenders shot their weapons at the enemy Mechas, only to be stopped by the oversized and incredibly thick shields. The slabs of alloy started to crack. One shield even caved in when shot by a railgun. Both sides quickly caught on what had happened. This is a miracle. Apelix hasn't abandoned his children in their greatest crisis. Kill the mech with the cryoprojector. Protect Callisto's mech. Fifth squad. Pull back and grab more cryoprojectors. I'll inform command of what's happened. Alvin's actions started a remarkable change on the battlefield. Mechas started grabbing every available cryoprojector in the base and began to haul down the shields one by one. The aggressors faced an unexpected setback. The rebel mech designer in charge of fabricating the shield even slammed his table back at the rebels' main stronghold on Railroad. The loyalists still have a competent mech designer among them. I thought every senior and master has defected to us. Another mech designer standing next to him rubbed his chin. Interesting. All the other elder mech designers in the Dominion are accounted for. Maybe the Sunstar dynasty managed to hire a guest designer. HMPH. Whoever dares to intervene in our revolution will go down with the Sunstars. A single decent mech designer won't save their base from being conquered. The rebel-aligned mech designers did not speak nonsense. Even after neutralizing most of the shields, the loyalists were still in a precarious situation. Vess privately made the same judgment as he piggybacked behind Alvin's mind as he frantically tried to freeze as many enemy shields as possible. Eventually, he realized that this base wouldn't last a day. Alvin had no chance of surviving past this day. Even if he did the unthinkable and surrendered, the rebels wouldn't take him prisoner. Wars between religious groups often turned out to be the bloodiest. The realities of this situation forced Vess to reevaluate his strategy. He already harvested a little bit more of Alvin's experience in maneuvering his mech. He only missed out on the most important bit, which was observing him when he fired his laser rifle. After making a decision, Vess chose an opportune moment to interrupt Alvin by making another attempt at invading his spirit. Vess happened to have interrupted Alvin at the same time the attackers shot apart his cryoprojector. The damaged nozzle spewed out an uncontrollable spray of freezing liquids and gases before the connection forcefully shut off. Are you trying to kill me, demon? Oh wait, of course you are. Stop whining and get back. When the fire runner blew up, some force grabbed Vess' consciousness and pulled him back to his present time and space. His mind came back online in his own body, but he felt an enormous amount of fatigue. The brief but intense ordeal on Railroad severely taxed his spirit. As he took a brief rest, he looked around and found to his alarm that his body hadn't woken up in his bed. Instead, his body somehow ended up in the lab. Vess jumped off the chair and looked around for anyone who could have moved his body here. Who's there? What did you do to me? The only thing that greeted him was a bemused Lucky. The gem cat meowed at him as if he was relieved that Vess had returned to his senses. Vess looked back at the lab machine and found to his surprise that it looked a lot different from when he previously left it. The most important change was that a strange cube the size of his palm rested in the lab machine. Last we recall, he only left
another one of those resonance amplifiers.
Get ready. Once I shut it down, the path ahead.
Take them through my body. The reconstructed spirit flashes as emotion. Vess' body sensed satisfaction from the imaginary entity. You didn't you? Even if he knew, it was not as if Vess could do anything about it. Despite the crystal golem's unorthodox birth, its strength was fearless. Vess wasn't sure he could overpower the spirit of mental battle. He left the crystal golem alone and beheld the strange crystal cube. He tended it and picked up and studied it from all sides. He detected nothing unique about the crystal. Then it thought that it wasn't so simple. Without his vote, he escaped. His men spat out a bunch of his feet.
They're behind you.
Danger circuits have been hacked inside the crystal.
Nice work.
Why didn't he listen? Circuits in the crystal cube did not match the circuits of the crystal spires. Seeing as the crystal cube was inert, Vess felt disinclined to study it further. I'm severely behind schedule in designing my rifleman mech. I can't afford to waste any time on fanciful alien technology. His most recent mastery still stayed fresh on his memory. Vess wanted to leverage his experiences into elevating his second original design as fast as possible before the details became vague. Thus, after
I've
making
never
a
seen
brief
Dark
decision,
Spawn this
Vess
stick into
entered the
armor
elevator
before.
and entered the strict
As far as I know,
he
it's never
deposited a strange
happened.
crystal cube.
If the gods are plated like someone claims, maybe you're communicating with the dark spawn somehow. Directing them?
You saw those Dark Spawn, though? Something was different about them.
And we'll stop them
Too soon.
once we get out of this bubble.
Right. Let's get to that central temple.
Even if he wasn't a religious nun, he was already doomed to die that day. He couldn't help but add a mental complaint to the system. Why put him in a situation where defeat was imminent? It had given Vess more time to absorb some experiences. Fortunately for Vess, he already went through mastery before. His time with
The wall looks weak here. I bet more Dark Spawn. Right where you broke that wall.
This knowledge, Vess things deciphering and understanding the experiences necessary to take to right potentials. Vess truly felt he got the short end of the stick this time. Alvin got his wish, and the Sunstar dynasty still stood standing, although they paid a heavy price to hang on to their current position of power. Vess failed to uncover any traces of Alvin. He'd been an average pilot before Vess entered the mech pilot's mind, and did not live long enough to make a lasting impact. Well, enough dilly-dallying around. No matter what I think of Alvin, he's long dead now. I don't have to worry about his vengeful ghost coming to haunt me in the coming days. The system's selection of Alvin Callisto prompted Vess to believe it definitely intended to pick only those marked for death as his mastery partners. Before, he considered the decision to be a detriment that deprived him of helpers. After finding out that he might be hitchhiking in the minds of uncooperative people, he drastically changed his opinion. It's better if my partners can't do any damage to me in the future. Unless they're as friendly as barley, I should attempt to kill off my partners the next time I redeem another mastery. With no further barriers to designing his next mech, Vess proceeded to pick up his work again. Before he could do the actual designing, he first had to purchase a couple more licenses. He already set aside a handful of licenses and only held off on acquiring them if his newly acquired mastery offered no protest. These licenses still look good. There's no problem in snapping them all up. Vess proceeded to buy a number of small components meant to improve the mech's ability to wield the laser rifle. They consisted of components that improved precision, various targeting aids, and an advanced processor specialized in parsing all of the data. Vess remembered that he drew a sensor system from the golden lottery ticket a while ago. He briefly inspected it and found out that it was a long-range mech sensor primarily used by light mechs. Although he could implement it in his current design, it wouldn't be able to reach its maximum theoretical range due to all the interference from his mech's other systems. It's also too expensive to mass produce right now. He frowned when he checked the raw materials needed to build the sensor module. Despite taking up a small amount of space, the module module alone might cost up to 20 million credits to fabricate. That was way too much for a single secondary component. The main reason why the price jacked up so much was because the license made use of exotics that VES had to import from another star sector. VES decided to purchase a native sensor system instead, one that seamlessly integrated with the targeting system he recently acquired. After finishing his purchases, the company account increased by about 800. Nonetheless, different from last time, it took a lot of effort for the LMC's financial department to release the funds. Along with the company's growth, its financial
another
responsibility
resistance amplifier.
as well. VES could no longer draw on the account directly, but had to submit a lot of forms
Should
in
be the
order to
last
obtain the
one, I
necessary
hope.
funds. Even
Me
though
too.
it took a couple of hours for the financial department to release the funds, VES didn't begrudge the accountants for taking their time. It's good that they're checking where the key flows. We can't have a scammer trying to pretend he's being swindled by company. After all of the paperwork, the LLC paid the company for licenses and at this time, VES then immediately understand the channel. And this year, and share the senses to take part in the design process.
We're close. I can feel it.
Mutually intertwined themselves, causing VES to enter a supremely elevated state where two minds instead of one was at work. The small target side believed that the
Have
state
you
would
noticed
engender
something about the Goliath
X
peak?
factor for this
Where it
design.
is? I
Might
mean,
even be possible to
almost
reach
like it's
as this
feeding
body
off
this
the
point.
own magic.
Let's get to work. VES called up a design program and loaded in his draft design before fleshing it out. VES already set a vision for his rifleman meant to be a consummate hunt gunner. Borrowing from Alvin's experiences, he tweaked the craft design to enable it to reach a slightly higher top speed in exchange for a bit less agility. He also planned in other deviations from the original draft. These mostly consisted of minor tweaks and changes in configuration that rifleman and pilots appreciated. Once he finished modifying his draft, he went on to design the actual mech. As usual, he started from the interior of his mech and worked his way outwards. He defined the internal frame of the mech and planned the placement of the various core components of the mech such as the engine, cockpit and power reactor. The rifleman mech envisioned by
If
VES
that
would be a
building's
fairly
what I
slimmed
think
down
it is,
medium mech,
then
so
the
he would have a
alignment
lot of
means
and
we're here.
this presented a lot
This
of
is
challenges
it.
to
This
VES as
is
he
where
had
it
to
was
study all
kept.
kinds of
Where
components
what
and
was
sizes
kept?
without any of its
The
filling out.
archive spirit,
He had to
or
make
as
some
the ancient elves
sacrifices
called
in
it,
order to obtain
not
sufficient.
afterthought.
After a few minutes
It
of
means the
contemplation, he
inevitability
made
of
his choice.
knowledge.
I could cut
What
back
does
on
that mean?
redundancy since it's not supposed to be a managed system, which
don't
implies that
know,
he would implement solution.
The notes were never very clear on
That
that.
was never made the space
Plan to
for
find
himself
out.
and himself. Anytime that he had to step after redundancy, this
More constructs
that
ahead.
is sustainable energy. Bad choice made. Sick and standing alone. And the other second was clearly in practice designs for doing. His experience with challenge, with her that she's even as much of a bit as possible. That's ways of his decision to stick with the big class. And his understanding of that's made that's
I did not mean to use that second one.
that's changes. That's also mode his gimmick would play a role.
Looks like the door's pointing to the second power crystal.
Then let's go find one.
Internal structure to accommodate the center crystal. Just because VES intended to make use of large laser propagator based on alien technology did not mean he could slot it in the chest of his design like any other component. Time flowed by as VES fully immersed himself into designing the rifleman mech. The crystal golem in his mind frequently added its own input on the design as well, leading to frequent changes that turned the design's appearance into something unique. The most drastic change entailed punching over the posture of his design. VES went short of imitating the extreme angle of the crystal golem's original race, but even then the change looked obvious. VES even figured that the hunch would make his mech more distinctive, although it also made it harder for the mech to turn its head to the rear. The change in posture shifted him. balance of his design had forced him to perform a lot of extra calculations in order to prevent his mech from tipping over. He spent most of the first month into fleshing out his design's internal architecture, while the crystal
There has to be another one of those power crystals.
complications. Vess possessed enough competence to adapt to the situation at hand. This wasn't his first rodeo, and nothing could top the internal complexity of the Caesar Augustus design. After working extensively with Jason Kozlowski's debut design, Vess ceased to be impressed with mechas that only hosted two different weapon systems. It's not that hard to accommodate another weapon system on a rifleman mech design. Vess merely had to ration his weight and space allowances carefully. The internal architecture that he came up with for his rifleman mech design reflected his earlier priorities. He added as much compartmentalization as possible, but cut short the level of redundancy. In any case, Vess put his faith on the armor to prevent the worst from coming to pass. It would still take a decent amount of effort to get past his design's compressed armor. Since Vess recycled most of the component licenses he acquired for the Blackbeak design, Vess did not have to puzzle over how to integrate them into his second design. He already knew how all of the parts performed and what kind of conditions they demanded. The power reactor, the Trailblazer engine, the cockpit and a lot of other components that Vess previously implemented in the Blackbeak design smoothly integrated in his rifleman mech design. Vess only faced some challenges when he attempted to slim down the components in order to free up a bit more weight and space. Modifying third-party components came with a lot of risks, and almost no apprentice mech designer would attempt such an action. Vess only went through with this move because he possessed enough knowledge to understand some of the inner workings of these components. Still, most of the components already went through countless optimizations, so Vess did not free up that much capacity. Some of his modifications came paired with minor losses in performance. Vess already took into account that a lighter mech had to sacrifice some capability in order to increase its mobility. Even if he used the same components as the Blackbeak, his first and second designs fulfilled different roles, thereby necessitating a lot of adjustments. He finished up the work in 3 weeks, which was fairly fast by his reckoning. Vess spent the next 2 weeks on simulating the performance of the internal structure and tweaking it to eliminate any faults. The tests and simulations revealed a lot of substandard implementations that unnecessarily lowered the performance of his mech. Vess spent a lot of time to correct these mistakes and smoothed over the performance of his mech's internal design. That should wrap it up, Vess said at the end of the first part of the design phase. The hardest part is over now. Vess accomplished a lot of work, including getting the central laser propagator to work. Still, Vess only came up with an untested application. It remained to be seen if the gimmick performed as expected. Starting from the second month, Vess worked on the exterior of his mech, including the armor system and the laser rifle. Before he started work on them both, Vess took the time to take a day off and check in with his company. He left his private workshop floor with Lucky in tow and visited the different departments. Everything appeared to go on track, although the sales of bronze-labeled Blackbeaks had dropped to its lowest level. Demand for the bronze-labeled Blackbeaks are stagnating because the third-party manufacturers have met the immediate demand for this specific design. Gavin answered Vess when he visited the marketing department. Elemental mech engineering is particularly worse off since it primarily serves the domestic market. You have to understand that the Blackbeak, while fairly popular, is a premium offensive knight. I understand, Vess nodded. Both its type and price segment limit the popularity of the Blackbeak. It's never meant to take over the market for knights. By now, EME only devoted a single production line to producing the Blackbeak. While they still sold some Blackbeaks every week, the sales volume was a far cry from when the design still enjoyed a lot of hype. What about Vaughn? How are they faring trying to push the Blackbeak across the border? It's the same as EME, but multiplied a couple of times. While they've never been able to conquer a lot of market share in any of the foreign markets, they're making plenty of sales when you add up the modest demands of more than a dozen different states. They're currently exporting the Blackbeak to 12 states and counting. All of that adds up. This
Around
benefits
here somewhere.
Asia as well, since Phone Industrial paid 3.5 million credits per them. Currently, it was difficult to predict how many Blackbeaks Phone would be able to sell each month, but Gavin spent a lot of time on analyzing the foreign markets. Right now, Phone is in a good place. They're easily able to export more than 100 Blackbeaks a month. It will be tough to push more matches than that. This means that at a minimum, the LMC can expect to receive at least 350 million credits in licensing fees. Naturally, like any income stream, these earnings didn't take into account the various overhead costs and other expenses of the company. In particular, the loan the company took to finance the Mexico production line significantly increased the company's interest rate.
Another ballista. I bet we could use it to break through that wall.
All of our recent expansions. That's true. That's true. Get swept up in the chaos as well. What are we saying? I'm saying we should prepare for the worst. Let's turn serious in those words. I know there's a possibility the Visions decide to raid our planet, but we've already made as much preparations as possible. We've upgraded our contract with Sanal Atlan Security Services and have even set up the Veilgaurds again, although they're still in infancy. However, our main source of security is our planet on the planet. Gangs enjoy a complicated relationship with states. Any gang that claimed the planet but failed to defend it against foreign aggression would be pushed from their position of power. Even though such a measure would be possible, the method that spread up these kinds of power the gangs enough times to demonstrate their point. Every citizen of the Pride Republic must defend their homes and maple. Still, just because the Whalers possess the obligation to defend Cloudy Curtain didn't mean it had to defend every location. In practice, gangs mainly held on to their core territories while letting the invaders lay waste to infrastructure that no one except the Republic cared about. The Whalers are our friends, and they know how much benefits the LMC brings to this planet. They'll definitely lend a hand if the Visions wants to raid the mech nursery. Jake looked a bit skeptical of Vess. As a former retainer of the Larkinsons, he was no stranger to partnering up with the less respectable parts of society. Still, the gang culture in Rittersburg was nowhere nearly as intense as the gang culture of the Benthine region. If you say so, I'll believe you, but it's better to prepare too much than prepare too little. What is your suggestion? His COO put forth the bold proposal. I suggest we hire a mercenary corps for a couple of months. We need a lot more matches to fend off even a minor Vision raiding party. I don't know if you haven't heard yet, but there's word that the 3rd Imidris Legion is circling around the Mech Corps in order to reach the Benthine region. All hell will break loose if they succeed. Vess frowned deeply at that information. Even Vess hadn't heard anything about the Vision sending an entire legion deep into Republican space. However, if Jake mentioned it to Vess, then the news must be true. The Larkinson estate must have informed the man. I see. In that case, the risk of hiring a couple of bad apples don't look so bad, he replied after considering the matter. You have my permission to hire a mercenary corps. Just one. I don't want any complications. Make sure they're trustworthy. I don't mind paying above the market rate in order to ensure their quality. Just don't set a lengthy contract term. A defense contract under these circumstances cost a lot of money, although they charged a lot less than dedicated security companies such as Sanal Atlan. The costs still added up to an unreasonable burden after a year. By then, the avatars of Myth could take over the duties previously performed by the mercenaries. Even though it cost a lot of money to set up his own personal force, the running costs looked a lot more reasonable than paying mercenaries to do the same job. Mercenaries existed and thrived on fulfilling temporary needs for wealthy clients. Vess personally did not think much about them even as he sold his products to them, but he did not dismiss their worth entirely. In these dangerous times, he could use all the help he could get. After taking care of impactful decisions like that, Vess returned to his private workshop floor and resumed his design work. All that's left is the exterior and a round of simulations before I can fabricate the first prototype. The most important part about the exterior was that Vess had to apply the Veltrex armor system without overburdening his mech. As an armor system optimized for knights, it functioned perfectly, and the 3 layers were thick enough to express their unique strengths. Vess knew that he performed a misdemeanor by applying the same system. Strong. Although the thin plates of armor did not live up to their potential, they enormously improved the survivability of his second original design. It's not a knight, but it doesn't have to be. Sometimes, Vess had to thin out the armor plating so much that their effective defense barely exceeded the standard of uncompressed armor. In most cases, Vess substituted the expensive materials with the much cheaper HRF armor system that Vess had last applied to the Mark Antony line of matches. He laughed to himself when he drew on the old license he obtained from the system as completing an early mission. I never thought I would go back to using this low-quality formula. If it worked, it worked. Vess ensured that the Veltrex armor system covered most of the essential sections of his design while covering some of the joints and other tricky areas with the much less demanding HRF armor system. It's not what I envisioned, but it mostly gets the job done. The use of 2 different armor systems led to slightly unique gears for his rifle and mech. If Vez had to describe his second original mech's appearance, then he would describe it as fast. Every curve and line evoked a sense of impatience and flightiness, as if it hated to stand still. The permanently hunched posture made the mech look like it was permanently on the prowl. Everyone who looked at its appearance would have the misconception that it hunted for a living. Even though Vez had not yet designed a customized laser rifle for the mech, everyone could easily imagine the threat it kept contained within its speedy frame. This was a mech that hunted other mechs for a living. His artistic sense prompted him to code his design with a mottled brown pattern. Although camouflage was pretty much useless in this age, the darker tones and subdued coloration brought a sense of understated class to the premium-priced mech. Vez added a slightly brighter yellow starburst pattern around the center crystal embedded in the chest. This would draw enemy fire towards the crystal laser propagator, which was very resilient against lasers and most types of thermal weaponry. The chest also boasted the thickest application of Veilgaurd's armor plating, so even if the enemy missed, his mech would still be fine. Mostly.
Give me that shit. Oh, fuck.
Even if Vez tried his best to obscure the different materials, the areas around the joints, neck and anywhere with minimal armor looked noticeably thinner, and adopted a slightly different texture that Vez could remove without using special and expensive clothing. I can't do anything about the weaknesses of the HRF armor plating. At the very least, I've got most of my design clad in compressed armor. It's going to be very hard for its opponents to aim for those weak points as long as it keeps moving.
Here it
The main
is.
reason why he
The
couldn't
knot is
apply thicker
falling.
armor to the joints was
So we
because
take
that
it, we're good, right? We can head back?
by prioritizing
Oh,
mobility
I
over
wish.
orders.
No,
As
it's
sure
a
this
lot
maximum
trickier than that.
fair amount
Right,
of top
because
speed,
darkspawn, demons, and animated suits of armor aren't tricky enough.
changes of direction. After subjecting the design to various simulations,
ever
the
easy,
design
is
had most of its
So,
features.
what makes this tricky?
If I remove the artifact the way I usually do it, it'll explode and take out half of our weapon with it. Good news is, I think I can shunt the energy somewhere else. Okay, here we go.
Complex issue. Best connect to deploy laser rifles that its power from external battery packs instead of the internal
The
armor.
way the magic is pulsing, I've never seen this before.
Packs inside a small, armored backpack module. It's
almost like it's
slotted into the
breathing.
modular fitting standard which Vez had installed on the back of his design. This separated the weapon's power usage from the power usage of his men. Some saw it as an advantage, as riflemen matches could develop greater external batteries without worrying about making their matches
Ogre! That's an ogre!
Matches that rely on projectiles generally focused on maximizing their performance. Reach very high levels, although these matches tend to wear out quickly as well.
Wasn't expecting to fight an ogre today. Then again, I also didn't expect to learn that our gods are rampaging around and trying to end the world. Just one of those days.
Lasers dealt a lot of damage, but they took time to
Okay.
achieve effect. This made them less deadly in short bursts.
Let's
Laser rifles
see.
also tended to grow hot really fast,
Okay.
so mech pilots had to pace their shots over an extended period of time. These rates tended to push edges and laser weapons into high endurance
There we go.
configurations that lasted for a long time. Mercenaries tended to prefer
No.
perversely value
It's
off
good.
riflistic weapons,
I think.
authorities and larger outlets use laser weapons for their ease of supply and their staying power.
What does that crystal do?
Keeps the artifact powered. Focuses the ambient magical energy. That's why these things still work, thousands of years later. No, you don't.
It's not set in stone. Mercenary stick weapons. That's opted to design a laser rifle and provide help and allow them to bring out its full strength. The private market still wondered for rifle conventions
Sulana, Vir Sulevana, and Asal Dethara.
about a lack of demand. He only needed to
Well,
convince the
then.
market that his neck was
I
worth
am
purchasing.
the Nanas Dethara.
That's what the gimmicks are for. I've already integrated
Right,
an untested laser.
I have questions.
That's
I
why
am
I was
the
designing
Nanas Dethara.
He already bought a standard 10-year license for a basic laser rifle design. Its robust and durable qualities along with the lack of frills made it an excellent base for modifications despite its generic and forgettable nature. 1.5 months already went by. Best planned to finish the laser rifle in 2 weeks before devoting another month for testing and iteration. A lot of time has already gone by. Anything can happen at this point. The sooner I finish this design, the better off the LMC will be once I'm called for other duties. Meow. Floating above his head, Lucky materialized and landed atop his head. The mechanical cat's light exterior made it uncomfortable for Vest to offer his head as a perch. Get off my head. Vest tried to grab hold of Lucky in order to move him from the top of his head, but Lucky quickly turned intangible once his hands went up. Lucky excitedly meowed as he avoided the hands and hovered back and forth in the isolated design room. I'm sorry for not spending enough time with you.
So that's the novice Earthbound.
It was, or is, I mean. Crystal's broken though, needs fixing. It's kind of my thing, fixing magical stuff.
You'll bankrupt me if you insist on dining on the best stuff. I don't have a glowing planet hiding in my pockets, you know. Times like these reminded him that he shouldered an excessive burden.
Strife and Irene will want to know about this. And the blight, and the dark dawn.
When mech manufacturers grew past the point where they would be called
Let me
small,
know when you're
they
ready to
rightly
head to the
expanded
Veilgaurd
from a
camp.
single designer to a team of designers. This wasn't the first time Vest thought about expanding the LMC's retinue of designers. The only problem he faced was one of trust. Vest carried too many secrets, any of which could ruin his life and career if others found them out. The problem was that if he kept those secrets to himself, others wouldn't be able to understand his design philosophy. Subsequently, their work would never match his exacting standards. Either Vest had to keep loose in his standard, or he had to resign himself to working by himself. After I finish this project, assuming I don't have any other obligations, I should try to cultivate Carlos as the LMC's second designer. Even though Carlos fell short of what the LMC demanded, Vest still trusted his friend over any other mech designer who would wish to apply to work in his company. His average background and relatively poor talent meant that no one else got to him yet. As his first benefactor, Carlos would trust Vest unconditionally. This is for later. I still have a rifle to finish. Vest took the existing design of a laser rifle and separated its components. After categorizing each component, Vest designed a laser crystal that would fit inside a rifle before determining which components could be left out. He puzzled over the issue for several days. He tried to strip out as many components as possible to slit down the rifle. Vest subsequently filled up the void by shrinking the rifle or allocated the extra capacity for larger battery packs and heat sinks. When Vest previously designed the weapon for the Tainted Sun, he added heat rods to the Grazer rifle. His current weapon project did not call for the same as conventional.
Ready to go?
Much less energy compared to the highly energetic gamma laser. While Vest had
Let's look
always
around a
channeled
little
the
more.
spirit of the crystal golem during his design work, it was only once he started work on the laser rifle that it emerged. You probably know a lot more about these laser crystals than me. If you have anything to suggest, I'm willing to listen. The crystal golem's second opinion proved me to be highly useful in trying to integrate the alien technology in a conventional human weapon design. It helped a lot with integrating the crystal with the remaining weapon components left inside the rifle design. In the end, Vest cut about 40 to 50% of the components utilized in the laser rifle
Ready to
design.
go?
Vest could have squeezed more performance savings out of the weapon if
Right.
he went even further.
Let's get
But
moving.
he was slow to
Come on,
so.
I'll show you the way to the
Taking
Veil Jumper
out the
camp.
essential stuff, the rifle would suffer a large degradation in performance. It was not worth it to take these essential components out. Actually getting the entire monstrosity to work according to spec was a lot harder than creating a proof of concept. Vez needed to maintain the laser rifle's level of performance compared to the base. Even though he possesses some experience in designing a laser rifle, he still lacked it.
My people.
11 wounded, 16 on bed rest, and some of our most experienced fighters are still missing.
We're running out of veil jumpers. Whatever's going on out there, it's scary.
Much further, if not for the necessity of trying to stand out from the competition. Vez would never waste his time with designing a custom laser rifle. It took a little longer to finalize the laser rifle. The extra time allowed him to remove any imperfections and increase the efficiency of his weapon until it matched the performance of the original weapon license, but only taking up half the weight and a lot less space. At this point, Vez was almost ready to
To hell no, never report back from Dimensions Crossing.
There are 100 people living in that village, or near enough.
I still haven't integrated the festive cloud generator in my mech.
Back, and you're alive.
The technology
Good.
used in this design from studying the remains of the crystal builders. His
Sounds
design
like things have gotten a lot worse since we left.
basically echoed the
Darkspawn. They're showing up all over Arlington, attacking anyone in their path.
We've evacuated 3 daily settlements already.
We ran into Darkspawn too, near the Nodester Thallen.
Wait, you found the Nodester Thallen? The archive spirit? We could ask it about the gods, figure out their next move.
A thrilling sense of anticipation ran through his body as he thought about them.
Archive's broken. Won't tell us anything. But that doesn't matter. Any Daler settlements we can save, we should.
So far, we've been lucky and arrived just in time. But given how fast these Darkspawn are moving, it's only a matter of time till our luck runs out.
Well, it hasn't run out yet. So let's stretch it until it breaks.
If we could predict where they strike next, we might get ahead of them. But so far, they've been unpredictable.
Which leaves us with what?
Demeter's Crossing.
What?
Early strife. When we came in, you said you lost contact with Demeter's Crossing. We could go check it out. The 3 of us, I mean. 4.
I'm coming with you.
Nev, you were still shaky, and
I'm coming, Harding.
I don't know what you're going to find there, Rick. Likely nothing good, but you'd be saving people. And it might be on the trail of the gods.
Demeter's Crossing is on the far side of the lake. There's a small boat at the docks. It'll take you there. Watch your back out there. And good luck.
Shaped holes throughout the front, sides and back of the head. He only filled a couple of them with sensors, leaving the rest of the holes plugged at the very end. The head looked unsettling, and added to the threatening nature of his rifle and then, due to the strange shape of the head, Vess found it to be the perfect outlet for the festive cloud generator. He integrated the module inside the neck and connected it to the holes in the head via dedicated channels. As for the color of the vapor, Vess decided to use the same understated brownish color as the exterior coating for his mech. My black beak either releases black or red phoenix flames, depending on the ignition. In order to add some flair to those who requested it, Vess added in a soul blue shade as an alternative. This would turn the head into some kind of horrific entity that resembled the skeleton that came back to life. Vess thought this would give his design a much better visual impact compared to the
okay, we'll need a boat to get there. Let's head to the dock.
Riflemen mech pilots are eager to call out attention for themselves. If the heads of their matches suddenly burn in bright blue, they're liable to attract a lot more enemy fire. The Blackbeak could afford to be focused on by enemy matches, but his rifleman mech fared poorly if put in the center of attention.
What you
Even
mean
though
about
both matches shared the same
The
same
actors show you a bit
had been
horrible.
designed as a damage
Oh,
sponge and the other had been designed to dish out the damage. After adding in the cloud generator, Vess essentially finished iterating his design. After this, he would no longer add new features and functionalities to his mech. From now on, he would proceed to optimize his design and smooth out its flaws until he ended up with a polished rifleman mech that wouldn't shame itself on the battlefield. I'm almost finished, he celebrated to himself, though the only one who'd heard his words was a bored Lucky who lounged around above his head. Getting these laser crystals to work is a bit of a pain, but it's well worth the effort. These gimmicks did not change the game entirely, but they provided a substantial amount of benefits, so long as Vess could actually turn them into reality. That was still in question, as Vess had never fabricated crystals up to this scale. The hardest part was already over. After completing his rough and polished design. Vess no longer needed to strain his mind on making difficult design choices. All that remained was correcting any inefficiencies that Vess had inadvertently introduced in the design. Vess proceeded to grow his design in a large number of elaborate simulations. Through the use of complicated mathematical models, Vess crunched the numbers and tested whether the armor coverage contained any hidden weaknesses or how many times the laser rifle could fire in quick succession before it malfunctioned or blew up. All of this was relatively boring work. Any results the simulations spat out prompted Vess to make minor tweaks such as thickening a plate of armor by a couple of millimeters and shifting one component to the left by a similar margin. This was precision that entailed a lot of repetition. The bigger design teams have dedicated analysts to process these simulations. It was a waste of time for mech designers to concern themselves with this kind of work. While it demanded a high understanding of mathematics and physics, it also involved relatively little design judgment, so the work didn't have to be done by a mech designer. If I worked alone, I could finish a decently optimized design in a little over 3 months. If I have an entire team to back me up,
Seems like a lot's happening around here.
What hasn't happened? This area is where Intermagisters destroyed Arlequin City centuries ago. Whole lot of blood magic during the war.
What about now?
Whatever Solus did stirred up everything again. The old blood magic from the war never went away. Ancient relics appear out of thin air, ruins float. It's like an old wound that never healed. And now it's bleeding again.
A single person always took longer to complete. A lack of involvement of others also made the matches designed by a single person very insular in nature. This meant that such matches possessed very
Whatever
pronounced
you.
strengths and weaknesses.
That was the
This
capital
could be
city,
so bad,
Arlequin.
but sometimes a match
This
design
is
so
what's left of it after the war.
I don't imagine it floated back in the day.
Its value was revealed. Vess was not so conceited and picky. He kept track of everything, including the things he didn't know. It seems like it's inevitable for the LMC to become more professional. Vess would always treat the LMC as his own personal kingdom. He merely considered the act of expanding his design team akin to hiring a couple of court wizards. As long as Vess kept a tight leash on them, they would be unable to pose a threat to him and his kingdom. Still, just because he resolved to create a design team didn't mean he could gather a number of people with a snap of his finger. Hiring a number of competent assistants is easier than done. The best people are claimed by the major players when they are a long way from graduation. He needed to cultivate talent from the ranks. In that regard, calling any of his employees talented would be stretching it. The only way he could cut short the arduously long training process was to utilize the advantages of the system. Before I design my third mech, I better stuff Carlos with a bunch of intelligence attribute candies and see what happens. Vess doubted that Carlos possessed more intelligence than the average among humans. If his intelligence attribute happened to have shot up straight to 2.0, that was a different story entirely. His friend would experience a sea of change, and would be able to digest every textbook that Vess had gathered in a matter of days. While Vess daydreamed about cultivating Carlos, an alarm suddenly interrupted his thoughts. A red light flashed for several seconds, long enough for the seriousness of it to set in. Vess forcefully halted his isolation and raced towards the terminal that connected to the outside world. He quickly called up Jade. What's going on outside? It's bad. The visions have come. That was all Vess needed to know. His jaw dropped and his heart skipped a beat. Even though he made a lot of preparations for their possible arrival, Vess secretly hoped they never decided to come to the Cloudy Curtain system. Out of all the rural systems around Bentley, Cloudy Curtain was one of the poorest and least developed communities in the neighborhood. Despite the rising importance of the LMC to the planet, agriculture still remained the dominant export of this planet. Even if the Visions wanted to start Bentley with their food, the most a couple of matches could do was earn some fields and destroy some processing plants. It would be impossible for an entire legion to scour the entire planet of all crops within a month. And when they left, the Pokemon consortiums would simply clean up the wreckage and plant another batch of crops. No, the Visions hadn't come to raid some farms. Their goal should be more than clear. That's the validity of Jade's projection. They're coming for us, they. Sanal Atlam thinks that's likely the case. The Third Universe Legion is out in force and they're simultaneously hitting over 20 different planets at once. All of the targeted planets in question are hosting some kind of industry related to matches or ships. In other words, the Visions definitely targeted as mech nursery. How many matches are they bringing along? If you take into account the historical patterns as well as their usual modus operandi, they're likely bringing in one company of spaceport matches and two companies of landbound matches. Why? These are full-strength companies. They can't compare against the matches and people employed by the private sector, leaving out the Stasic matches. Cloudy Curtain can withstand the fury of more than 80 military spec matches. The Met nursery will stand such a force.
Ready to go.
Jake replied, revealing his own apprehension of the nearing fleet of combat carriers. The defenses of the Met nursery can't even withstand a single company of Legion matches. Two companies can absolutely overrun our base, although that doesn't take into account our mobile defenses. The Met nursery still possessed a way to survive the Vision Fury by relying on their allied matches. Talk to me about our mech disposition. We've just discovered the Visions, so it's not clear how many matches we can call up. Right now, San Aladlin has promised 24 high-quality matches to our defense. These are top-of-the-line third-class matches, so they'll be able to punch above their weight against the Visions. That's not an understanding. San Aladlin Security Services was a subsidiary of the Consul Clan. As a partner of the second-rate state, the Consul Clan was more than capable of maintaining such an expensive force of matches in the standard of third-rate states. Still, even with the LMC's current earning levels, they could ill afford to expand their
Nev. Then let's go.
Complex. As for the Admars and men, you should know more about them than me, seeing that they're under your sole command. As far as I'm aware of, your cousin Melkor has been drilling them non-stop in their current service matches. Although they only bring 9 matches to the table if you include your cousin, their capabilities should be on par with the average Legion squad.
I've never seen fog this thick in Demetta's Crossing.
They were still horribly outnumbered, but if they fought cleverly, they still stood a chance of repelling the raiding force. Have they gotten in touch yet? They have, but Jake hesitated a little. They aren't exactly eager to come to blows with the Visions.
This isn't right. The dock usually has people bringing goods to market, bartering and shouting. It's always busy.
Something happened here.
Stay sharp.
Jake sounded like he swallowed a sour lemon. I think it's best to switch you over to Melkor. He's been coordinating the Met nursery's defenses. Has waited for the code channel to switch to Melkor. Yes, I've been meaning to speak to you. I just heard issues. Tell me about the readiness of the mercenaries. Did you hire and what kind of issues do they have? Melkor's side on the other side of the
It's so
channel.
quiet.
Too quiet.
Where is everybody?
Some of them join the Met Corps or get conscripted by them. Right. Yes, and it's always the best of them that get snapped up one way or another. Usually, mercenaries prize their freedom and identity, so the Met Corps usually contracts them to defend less important places that still need to be protected. So right off the bat, the best mercenaries have disappeared, leaving the hiring market with the non-elites and the small to medium-sized mercenary corps who aren't worthy of notice. That's added on to Melkor's explanation. He could predict where his cousin was going with this story from his own understanding of how the market worked. Since this is a time of war, plenty of companies are shivering in their pants. They can't bolster their security forces fast enough, so they've immediately hired the leftovers who are still worth a damn. The latest war between the Bright Republic and the Visha Kingdom already raged on for a couple of months. The most far-sighted companies already made their moves long ago, and you've tasked us some time ago to hire some mercenaries as well. The
It's market day. People should be out selling eggs and buying bread. But everything's just
various amounts of baggage. The only good thing about
They
them is that they
barricaded
know
the
they're
main
ready
entrance
to
to
attack.
town.
So they
To keep
always
something
go
out.
against the prices.
No,
Did you hire
to
Jake?
keep something in.
Not exactly. Melkor shook his head. Those guys are liable to cut and run when the going gets tough. I'm not stupid enough to put my faith on those types. Besides, none of these cowards indicated that they wanted to take this
light. Even worse than in the forest.
You okay? What happened here?
Keep them inside. Listen to the man.
Hello?
I don't think he can hear us.
In any case, there aren't that many
We
mercenaries
rewarded
to accept
all
the
of us. No, you can't.
Hey, can you hear me?
Just stay here, and everything will be fine.
After discussing it,
Someone powerful magic is dominating the minds of these villagers.
The town square. We need to search for survivors.
Let's see what we can find. Fan out.
So I decided to contract them even if they don't specialize in defense. His cousin must have a good reason to do so. And what's the just saying. The Mudriders have a black mark on their record. Vess instantly turned serious.
This is Adeline. I knew her. She was a farmer, sold spices to us, the best in Arlington. I can't believe this happened.
Their obligations. They were much like the Men Trade Association in that regard, though they did not wield any real power to maintain their own defense force. In short, they acted solely as
That's an Arabelle on the roof.
The Blights must have lifted it up there.
that failed to do their jobs for some reason or another. The MA would often be called to investigate the circumstances if the mercenaries and their employers failed to come to an agreement. Either the mercenaries would be acquitted or they received a red or black mark on their records. A red mark signified a warning sign. It meant that the mercenary courts in question had fudged their job somehow. These marks exclusively lowered the valuation of the corps. Unfortunately for them, the MA offered plenty of options to redeem themselves, usually for demonstrating good behavior in the next handful of missions. It was a different case with the black mark. The mercenary corps had to do a completely unforgivable act in order to acquire a black mark. This usually entailed actions short of becoming a full fire.
This blight is weird.
Never seen anything like it.
Never. Blight's usually dead, static. But this is alive.
Once they received the black mark, sadly, the men pilots wouldn't be able to get away with it either, as the black mark persisted in their personal records as well.
What was that?
Something big. Stay sharp.
The mercenary business
Over there. 2 more survivors.
Another desperately wanted to stay in the business. The MA offered
Hey, what's going on here?
Find the veiled jumpers. Bring them to the mayor.
They're talking about Jahel and Milva.
They said bring them to the mayor. If we find the mayor, then maybe we'll find your friends.
duties in the middle of nowhere. They specifically had to demonstrate their valor, completing high-risk assignments. This is the first high-risk assignment.
Why were they looking for veiled jumpers? What did the mayor want with
They
them?
received their black marks of the outbreak when they were attracted to the venom of the natural conserved planet. For some reason, they did not prepare for it and got bumped with their hands down when an raging raiding party entered the system. You can guess what happened next. These Mudriders already sounded like idiots to
Look,
best.
more people.
That port was imminent back
Must
then.
round down everyone.
Must get them inside.
The operations were natural reserve, but they never actually expected to face the stakes of what
Man, this is sick, dude.
it's actually to be a very
Ah, shit.
against the became so enormous that even if the commander wanted to make a stand, the circumstances forced him to hold back as well, hence the black mark. While Vess felt a lot of sympathy for the mercenary commander, that did not mean he appreciated the commander's leadership abilities. Right, and now we're
That's
the
one
ones
of your
they're
fellow
tasked with
sail jumpers?
defending. How many matches do they have? There's only 24 left. The good thing is that most of them are advanced matches. The Mudriders who piloted the frontline matches didn't hold much loyalty to the corps and don't possess strong wills. What's left are the true core of the Mudriders. 24 matches. Most of them on par with the matches of the Adgars and men. That sounded a bit better. This brought the defending
We're
matches
going to
to at
help
least
you.
have the strength
We'll get
and
you down to
limitations
hell.
like bring to bear. It was still short of ensuring victory, but Vess could not afford to be picky at the moment. Veilgaurd proceeded to tell Vess a few other details about the Mudriders that he should know before suggesting that he should meet with the mercenary commander in person. The Mudriders are based in med stables next to ours. You should really speak with the commander and try to convince him that the med nursery will hold as long as they are committed to the fight. That's not it. He knew how important it was to prod up the mercenaries after suffering an enormous spout of bad luck. I'll go do that. He cut the comm channel and proceeded to leave the underground portion of the mech nursery with Lucky and Cook. As he briefly glanced at the various floor, he noticed that the manufacturing complex had gone into full crisis mode. His people halted every non-essential operation, such as fabricating matches and began to sleep. After leaving the med stables occupied by the Mudriders, Vess paid a visit to the facility that held the Adgars and men. Veilgaurd already used the logic provided by Vess to good use. The med stables.
Come on, that sounds close.
Veilgaurd briefly was here. I believe you have met many of the small fighters. They look like they have something to do. You can't trust what you see. They sleep with their best people. Veilgaurd wished things he let him test the benches of his own person. Max radiators. Stack the various workstations in a highly secure chamber that's recognized as a temporary
A hungry heart, creature, come to me.
I know you. You're the mayor of this town.
Progress to the interstitial. They'll arrive in about 11 hours.
Blighted,
That's very short.
dead, all of them.
You
gave them to the gods, didn't you?
The space plot and trace the trajectory of ancient ships. Is there any way to find their ships? No, I've already made some inquiries and it's just to damage them. They're very bombarded by a control company of spaceborne matches. As you know, the Veilgaurd isn't maintaining any garrisons in this star system. Instead, the job of
You're not going anywhere until I get the full story.
I tried to protect people. You have to believe me. The gods told me to lure the veil jumpers to the center of town. The others were to be rounded up and kept safe. They would be the first to witness the glory of Gillidan's new creation. Show me gold. So much gold.
Space was not their strong suit. They much preferred to operate on land, as that was more intuitive and required less brain power to understand. In order to excel in space like a true spaceborne fighting force, commanders would need to hire...
So you brought the Veilgaurd to the middle of town.
For a blood sacrifice.
Because the gods needed power.
Did you know what the gods would do?
The veil jumpers were just strangers. I thought they were taken first, everyone else might be spared.
So you did know.
The gods exploited his greed and fear.
I'm supposed to feel sorry for him? I say we leave him right here.
But I'll die. The plants everywhere wanted the dragon comes back.
If we let you go, you'll run straight back to the gods.
They were in his head. Their influence might linger.
I understand what they do now. I won't be tempted again, I swear.
As let out in London frustration, seems like everyone is doing their best to shirk responsibility for the most arduous task. We'll send out and do their jobs at least. They've informed me that they are committed to fulfill their contracts, and for once, I believe that the credibility of SAS as a whole is on the line here. That meant that the Med Nursery could at least...
I mean, this asshole kind of got the whole village killed. In my honest opinion, I feel like we should just leave him to rot. Look, Neve, I understand, you know, he's probably just an innocent bystander in all of this, but nigga, he's the fucking mayor. This nigga is responsible for everything, bro. Look at his fucking village. He did this shit. He got her people killed. I say we leave him here.
Leave him here. He can fend for himself.
Wolves will get him in the night. Or, given the state of this place, something worse.
Standard Vision doctrine calls for concentrating their force and reaching our defense line in a single power.
He can fight back.
At least he'll have a chance to fight back. That's more than his own people got.
You don't understand the power they have to show you what you crave. They speak to the darkness in your heart. No one can stand against that.
Watch me.
I won't be the last to surrender. I felt the evil.
Let's go. No point arguing with a dead man.
No.
The fade had opened, and the gods were free. Thanks to Solus, they'd woken up to find their empire, their subjects, even their fellow gods, all gone. But they still had the power of the blight, and corrupting a village was just the start. They made plans to tap more of the blight, all of it, to rebuild their empire. As a path to power, it has its costs. And everyone will pay for it.
We don't have too many front-facing resistance otherwise. Veilgaurd nodded his head but let out a breath in concern. Really, Ves, you could have spent more time and resources on bolstering your defenses. Rushing the construction of the mech nursery helped out, but the base builders haven't completely finished building all of the systems that makes this complex defensible. Well, I can't help the timing of the 3rd Imidris Legion, who is leading that unit, a descendant of the Duchess of Imidris named Lady Amalia. She's young and way down the line of suggestion, so she certainly set out to make a name for herself. That sounded really bad for Cloudy Curtain and the rest of the Benthine region. 2 types of leaders typically took charge of the Vision Legions. The most common type would be career officers, who mostly inherited the position from their parents. They were much like the Larkinsons in that they possessed a strong military heritage. It was the other type of leader that posed a huge threat to the LMC. Mech legions led by ambitious heirs often did whatever it took to earn military merits. At the highest level of nobility, the fight to inherit a dukedom often led to lots of tears. Okay, it's someone to pay and we can expect the Vision raiding force won't be cowed by our defenses. Best recalled a few instances where he witnessed the Visions in battle. One particular moment stood out. It was when the fleets of the Mech Legion and Mech Corps temporarily banded together to escape the glowing planet. Once they shook off the bridges, their fleeting reticence quickly dissolved, and both sides started swinging punches at each other without any regard for caution. Melker laid down the most pressing issue. 24 matches from Senile active. The squad of matches under my command will stay back as a reserve. The 30 matches sent by the Whalers will approach the Visions from the direction of Preslin once they've committed to the assault. That amounted to 63 matches, which sounded deceptively impressive, and true. Best would be a fool to assume they would all be completely willing to go into the fight. The Whaler matches especially for the most unstable. They could only be used as a distraction.
Did you find our scouts?
The Visions definitely wouldn't expose any weaknesses
I'm sorry.
for them to exploit.
Elgrin
While their
and
numbers
Gilliman sacrificed them in some kind of
themselves, their
ritual.
individual unit cohesion was extremely high. Therefore,
What about the rest of the
defense
village?
of the Mech Nursery
The
rested on
ritual
the role of
spread
Mud
blight
Riders.
everywhere.
Only when the Smud Riders really
The
be
entire
useful, they
village was
stand
overrun.
Definitely.
The few
Don't
survived
mistake
are
that
controlled
we
by
will
blood
go
magic.
skirmishing
Their
the
minds
universe.
are
A mercenary
gone.
corps of that
Algernon
caliber
and Gilliman
any
use
chance
them
to
like
training of their
puppets.
mech pilots. Besides, the Mech Nursery's premises are large enough that they can still run around as much as they want to inside our defensive perimeter. Alright, so they'd definitely be useful if they defend the Mech Nursery from the inside. But won't they be more
I dare
effective
say
if
it
they
was a
accept
show of
Commander
force.
Hewson's request to let them range outside the perimeter? Melker conceded that point. That's true. But this isn't a situation
They will
where
not
everyone
rest
gets
until
what they
you are
want.
on your
The Visions are
knees,
upon us in less
fearful,
than half the standard
cowering,
day, and we only have
helpless
so
in
many
the
benches
face
to
of
go
such
around.
power.
You have to realize that the Visions will
Lady
attempt to breach the
Morrigan?
walls in a single go with
'Tis
all
simply
they got.
Morrigan
It's
to
vitally
you,
important
Scout
to
Hardy.
maintain that initial
What a
push,
pleasure
and
to
that
see you
requires a
again.
lot more than the 24 matches
Rook,
that would
this
say
is
that
Morrigan,
is
an
offering.
old
Well, we've
acquaintance.
also got the Avidar's
I thought she could
connection.
help.
Best, don't tell
Morrigan
me
helped the Inquisition when Veilgaurd were part of
even
it.
though the Visions are
She
likely
knew
to be
more
more
about
direct
ancient
approach,
magic
there's
than
always a
anyone,
chance they'll
except
speak principle
Solus.
of something else.
'Twas both pleasure and necessity to help then, as it is now.
And they also
Stopping
need some of the
Elgin
best
and
and most
Gilliman shall
reliable
require
people.
many
No one else
hands.
but my Avatars can fulfill this role. This left a fairly bleak picture for the Mech Nursery's defense. Melker truly convinced him of the necessity to leash the Mudriders to the walls. Commander Hewson and the rest of the mercenaries wouldn't be glad to hear that, but the mercenary contract they
Your help.
convinced them.
How
I guess
refreshing.
She looks so
Its
different.
nature is appreciated
I love
in
it.
return.
What can you tell us about all this?
I love that the characters actually look fucking pretty now, and they don't look kind of ugly and look like cavemen. The women actually look really good. The men look good. Look at my hair. He look like a pretty nigga. That's because he's an elf. But it makes sense. We caused this.
Better luck. Best start. As if I'm any better. It's more like my mouth is made of wood. The appearance of a vision-raining force into the quiet star system of cloudy curtains sparked an enormous
All
reaction.
this horror because a bunch of power-hungry gods want even more power.
When have the powerful among us ever done otherwise?
So how do we stop them?
Set aside your notions of godhood and see them for the ancient, powerful mages they are. Standing against them shall require serious magic of your own. When you interrupted the Dread Wolf's ritual, did you happen across any of the tools he used?
He had a dagger, but it got lost in the chaos.
Then you would do well to find it. 'Tis better in your hands than those of the gods.
Is there anything else Solus might have had that could help us? We're in his, well, he calls it
Republic's
the
eternal
lighthouse.
origin in the cloudy curtain system of
yes.
all places caused an
Legendary
enormous
sanctum
ripple
of the
effect among the
Dreadwolf.
populace. Many
Tis
sleepy
said
citizens
his
didn't even
Eluvian,
know what to do in the
the
event of an
Veilgaurd,
emergency,
could travel
which was
to
something
any other
unthinkable in a
Eluvian
crisis
of
ridden
his
place like
choosing.
Benfi. With
That's
millions of
not
people
how it
running
works right
around
now.
like headless chickens,
It only
a
goes
number
to
of
Arnold.
influential organizations
I can
forcefully
take a look
took
at it.
charge.
Maybe
The
he can
Planetary
fix it.
Assembly was not
I
among
know
them.
Eluvian's
During
never
a
been
crisis of life and death,
Any
no
help
one
you can
paid
offer,
attention
we'd
to the
appreciate
local
it.
politicians.
If
In recent
Eluvians
times,
even
the ruling
want the
coalition
same
had
way,
taken a
I'll
large
be
hit in
wanting to speak
popularity.
now.
Their stranglehold on local
Our
politics
gods
was
are
a
back.
thing of the past.
Our
Nevertheless,
gods.
the Greens and the
They're
White
killing
Doves never
people.
relented in their
Do I
public
want the
criticism
world?
of the
How do we stand
pioneers.
up
The
against
LMC
that?
and VES, the White Doves in particular, rightfully argued that they had warned the people for years. I told you so. What was Mr. Larkinson thinking for setting up a giant
None of us can do this alone, but we can stop them together. Balara, you're one of the only people in the world who can get our Eluvian working. Harding can track down the Lyrium dagger, and Nev can spot any clues we might miss that give us more information. Let's get to work. There's a lot of fight ahead of us.
Indeed. Prepare yourselves well and have a care in your choices. These are the times in which legends are born or slain. In this battle, I shall render whatever assistance I am able.
Right. Let's move.
The businesses and influential people congregated their efforts to amplify the voices of the discontent. On the other side of the planet, Breslin, which had become a lively city of mech enthusiasts, fought back with their own words. You freaking cowards. The Republic should have you shot for your treasonous words. Newsflash, dumbasses, mechas are prevalent in every corner in the galaxy. No matter how hard you try to bury your head in the sands, there's no way you can avoid bumping into mechas. Millions of Republican mech pilots have fought and bled to preserve your freedom, and you want us to roll over and destroy our own mech builders on our own accord? You should be ashamed of yourselves. I don't know about you, but the Visions are the enemy, not one of our own. If you're so eager to lend them a hand, then go tumble out of the Bright Republic this instant. The raucous debate grew superheated even as the Vision combat carriers neared the divided planet. For some reason, the Republican commissioner remained mum and did not face the public in order
You can do this, Lace. It's gotta be done.